After studying this module, you would know about the role played by negotiable instruments in the world of business. You would know the meaning and features of negotiable instruments. You would come to know the most common kinds of negotiable instruments. You would understand the detailed features of promissory notes, bills of exchange, and checks. You would also know about the classification of negotiable instruments and finally understand the meaning of maturity date of negotiable instruments. Let us first gather some basic understanding about negotiable instruments. Facilitates economic exchange. Therefore, wherever we go into the market, especially if it involves some kind of money exchange or economic exchange, then we keep a certain quantity of money with us, which would be used for the transactions for the sale and purchase of goods and services in the market. We never think why these suppliers of these goods and services are ready to accept the currency notes or coins in exchange for goods and services. Well, they do so because they know that they will be able to obtain other goods and services from other businesses or from other firms or from different households in exchange for the same money. This is the principle of the universal acceptability of money as a valuable asset, and in a given society, this is what gives the value or the confidence to people that using money, owning money, keeping money, storing money, all of this is valued in that system. So, the value of all goods and services therefore are expressed in money terms, and all such transactions use money in exchange. In the earlier stages of civilization, we had a barter system. The barter system was the primary mode of exchange of goods and services. Before the use of paper currency began, and during the medieval centuries, the metallic coins issued by kings served the role of currency in such societies. During the pre-paper currency times, the trading communities too had developed the usage of their private paper instruments to facilitate trade. You may be aware that in India, the usage of indigenous instruments such as hundis dates back to the ancient times. In Europe, such paper instruments are called bills of exchange and have been used ever since the medieval times. In modern times, we have seen the emergence of paper currency in many countries. This facilitated the expansion of commerce and trade to distant places. But this paper currency alone could not keep the wheels of the business operations going full steam. The non-money paper instruments whose use has started amongst the traders even before the advent of paper currency came up for wider circulation during modern times. These instruments in various forms such as bills of exchange, checks, bank drafts, hundis, etc. were augmenting the support provided to trade through money. These instruments used as supplements to money are known as negotiable instrument. Negotiable instrument means something which is an instrument or an asset which can be transferred by delivery from one hand to the other. The word instrument means any document defining certain rights and duties. If you would think of a 100-rupee note, there is you have a right to go to the Reserve Bank and get it exchanged if you would like to have it in some other form, and there is a duty on the part of the Reserve Bank of India to honor this promise. Therefore, money holding and money transfer are essential requirements of the economic world. The negotiable instruments have helped in serving these needs of the trading world for long. With the emergence of information technology and internet, more innovations have taken place in the methods of holding and transferring money. Law governing the creation of the use of negotiable instruments is contained in the case of India in the Negotiable Instruments Act 1881. This module will enable you to understand the role played by the negotiable instruments in the world of business, the meaning and features of a negotiable instrument, the most common kinds of negotiable instruments, the detailed features of a promissory note, bill of exchange and a check, and a brief idea about various classification of various negotiable instruments. Finally, also we will dwell upon the meaning of maturity date of negotiable instruments. A negotiable instrument is it is a kind of a property in which one acquires the property and who takes its bona fide, and this is for a value notwithstanding any defect of title in the person from whom he took the instrument. The negotiable instrument has some essential features. Rather, we should say it is because of these features only that an instrument takes the form of negotiable instruments. And these features get into an instrument not because of some laws as it would be, but because of a continuous practice in the trading world that grant this kind of acceptance to the negotiable instruments. So, for an instrument to be generally universally accepted and to be recognized as a negotiable instrument which is transferable, the features have to be defined. So, only those assets which have these features can qualify as negotiable instruments. A negotiable instrument is in writing and it is signed by a maker. It carries a monetary value. It contains an unconditional promise or order to pay some money. It is about the fixed amount of money only. It is easily transferable from one person to another, and this can be done repeatedly. The transferee of a properly made and acquired negotiable instrument has the right to recover the amount mentioned in the instrument in his own name. and the transferee of a negotiable instrument acquires a title over the instrument which can be superior to the title of the transferor, which may be defective in certain circumstances. Now let us discuss different kinds of negotiable instruments. Promissory notes. Promissory note is a negotiable instrument which is made by a person liable to pay. It contains an unconditional promise by its maker to pay a certain sum to another person. A bill of exchange is a negotiable instrument which is drawn by the person entitled to receive the payment. It contains an unconditional order directing a certain person to pay a certain sum of money to the bearer of the instrument or a specified person thereof. A check is a negotiable instrument containing an unconditional order to a specified banker to pay a certain sum of money to the bearer of the instrument or to a specified person. And then we have other types of negotiable instruments. Every document which fulfills these requirements of a negotiable instrument is recognized by usage or custom as a negotiable instruments. These are some examples: hundis, treasury bills, bankers' drafts, share warrants, promissory notes, dividend warrants, bearer debentures, government treasury bills, or other instruments such as those issued by port trust or improvement trust as debentures. Documents that are not negotiable instruments. Certain types of documents carry some monetary value which can be transferred, but the transfer takes place as an ordinary good, not as a negotiable instrument. One such example or a few examples are share certificates. That means share certificates are not transferable and hence they are not a negotiable instrument. Postal orders, money orders, deposit receipts, letters of credit, bills of lading, railway receipts and dock warrants. These are specific instruments which are definite instruments which can be used for exchanging monetary value, but they are not all negotiable instruments. Please note that the last three are called quasi-negotiable instruments because they can be transferred by delivery, endorsement or by delivery. So their weakness is that the transferee can never get a little better than that of the transferor. In terms of what we said earlier, that there is some better assurance to the transferee. It may be that with the transferor there was some defect. Hundis, a hundi or a rukka is a traditional Indian negotiable instrument being used since ancient times for transfer of payment of money. Hundis are written in a local Indian language. The hundi may be made in the form of a bill of exchange or a promissory note. Hundis are subject to local usage and would be affected by the provisions of Negotiable Instrument Act 1881 also. Now, promissory note. A promissory note is made by a person liable to pay an amount. Through this instrument, a promise is made in writing by a person who has to pay a certain sum of money to a specified person. The definition. According to section 4, a promissory note is an instrument in writing not being a bank note or a currency note containing an unconditional undertaking signed by the maker to pay a certain sum only to or to the order of a certain person or to the bearer of the instrument. Who are the parties? Parties to a promissory note are the maker and the payee. The maker is the person who makes the promissory note and promises to pay the money stated therein. The payee is the person to whom the amount mentioned in the promissory note is payable, that is, to whom the promise to pay is made. What are the essentials of a valid promissory note? 1. It must be in writing and includes printing and typewriting. It must contain an express and not implied promise to pay the money. The word promise may not necessarily be used. It may not be that literally you find the word promise. Promise to pay must be definite and unconditional. The following instruments signed by G do not become valid promissory notes. Now let us look at these examples. I promise to pay B rupees 1000 a month after A's marriage with C. It is an uncertain promissory note because A may never marry C. I promise to pay B rupees 1500 on C's death provided that C leaves me enough to pay that amount. In this case also, although the death of a person is a certainty, the payment is conditional. I promise to pay K rupees 2000 as soon as possible. This is an uncertain statement. But where an instrument is made payable on the happening of a definite event, the instrument is valid because there is no uncertainty regarding the payment. For example, a person signed an instrument in the words, I promise to pay rupees 2500 after a month of C's death. It is a valid promissory note because the death is a certainty. It must be signed by its maker. If the maker is illiterate, then he may put the thumb impression. It must contain a promise to pay in terms of legal currency, that is, money which is recognized and not in kind. This means that a promissory note cannot be redeemed through goods or services. It must have a promise to pay a definite amount of money. The amount of money stated in the note must be definite and must be certain, must not be uncertain. It cannot be vague. Where the determination of the amount is to be based on some interest calculation or an exchange rate, or that the payment would be in installments, the promissory note shall be valid. The following is a valid promissory note. I promise to pay S rupees 8000 in 16 monthly installments of 500 rupees each on every first of every month. If I default in any installment on the due date, the whole balance unpaid shall become due. The parties to the promissory note must be certain. Both the parties, the maker and the payee, must be identified on the face of the instrument. However, the parties may describe by name or by designation, that is, manager of a bank, the managing director of a company. So, it could be an entity or a designation and not necessarily the name of the manager. Where, however, in a promissory note or a bill of exchange, the drawee or the payee's name is misnamed or misspelt, the extrinsic evidence shall be admissible to identify him. Now let us try to understand what a bill of exchange is. A bill of exchange is an order in writing asking a person to pay a sum of money to a specified person. The definition under section 5 is as follows. A bill of exchange is an instrument in writing containing an unconditional order signed by the maker directing a certain person to pay a certain sum of money only to or to the order of a certain person or the bearer of the instrument. Generally, a bill of exchange is drawn by a creditor upon his debtor as a conditional payment of his money. Who are the parties to a bill of exchange? The drawer. It is the person who draws the bill of exchange. He is the maker of the bill of exchange. The drawee is the person on whom the bill is drawn. The person who is ordered to pay the amount of the bill of exchange. When the drawee accepts the bill of exchange, that is, when he gives his written consent to make the payment of the bill on the due date, he becomes the acceptor and becomes liable. It may be noted that a bill can be negotiated even before it is accepted. If acceptance is refused by the drawee, it becomes dishonored or by non-acceptance. The payee, this is the person to whom the amount of the bill of exchange is payable. When a bill is made payable to the payee only, it will not remain a negotiable instrument, although it shall be a valid bill. So, very often we find that checks are inscribed as payee's account only. Now let us learn in this context or through this context, let us learn about a check. A check is a peculiar kind of bill of exchange. It is a bill of exchange which is drawn upon a banker and is always payable on demand. The amendment in the year 2002 has recognized an electronic check as an electronic image of a truncated check, also as a check. Section 6, which has given the definition of the term check, now reads as follows. Definition. Section 6. A check is a bill of exchange drawn on a specified banker and not expressed to be payable otherwise than on demand, and it includes the electronic image of a truncated check and a check in the electronic form. The explanation. A check in electronic form means that a check which contains an exact mirror image of the paper check and is generated, written and signed on a secure system ensuring the minimum safety standards with the use of digital signatures, with or without biometric signatures, and an asymmetric crypto system, which is a system of ensuring the safety and the security of the check. A truncated check means a check which is truncated during the course of a clearing cycle, either by the clearing house or by the bank, whether by paying or receiving payment immediately on generation of an electronic image for transmission, substituting the further physical movement of the check in writing. A check is a bill of exchange and has following two additional features. A check is always drawn on a specified bank, and a check is always payable on demand. Who are the parties to a check? A drawer, this is the person who draws the check, he is the maker of the check. A drawee, this is the person on whom the check is drawn and who is directed to pay the amount. A payee is a person to whom the amount mentioned in the check is made. In many cases, the drawer and the payee may be the same, where, that is, for example, where the person draws a check to pay oneself, pay to self. Essentials of a valid check. It must have all the essentials of a bill of exchange, being itself a bill of exchange. It must be drawn on a specified banker. A check drawn on any person other than a banker is not valid. It must be payable on demand. A check, it is not required to be accepted by the drawee bank. Moreover, a check is also not required to be stamped. What is a bank draft in this context? A bank draft is an order issued by a bank on another bank on its own branch at another place to pay the stated amount to the specified person in this order. It is also a negotiable instrument, just like a check. Now let us discuss about classification of negotiable instruments. Inland and foreign instruments. Inland instrument, according to section 11, are promissory notes, bills of exchange or checks drawn made in India and made payable in and drawn upon any person resident in India, and these shall be deemed to be an inland instrument. Foreign instrument, under section 12, any such instrument not so drawn may be payable as an inland instrument shall be deemed to be a foreign instrument. That means anything which is not an inland instrument is treated as a foreign instrument. Bearer and order instrument. A bearer instrument under section 13(1), a promissory note, a bill of exchange, a check is payable to bearer, which is expressed to be payable on or which the only or the last endorsement is an endorsement of a bank. The term bearer instrument means an instrument whose payment can be taken by any person who has the lawful possession of the instrument. Order instrument. An instrument would be payable to order where the instrument is expressed to be payable to a particular person or according to the order of that person, or where the instrument is expressed to be payable to a particular person and which does not contain any word restricting its further transfer. That means it then becomes further transferable. Time and demand instrument. Demand instrument is given under section 19, a promissory note or a bill of exchange in which no time for payment is specified and the check is payable on demand. A demand instrument may be described as an instrument in which the holder need not wait for its payment and can demand the money as and when he chooses to do so. Now, then we have time instrument. A time instrument, on the other hand, means an instrument which is payable in future sometime after it is made. The following instruments are time instruments: promissory notes or bills of exchange, which are payable for a fixed period, let us say 90 days or 120 days, and so on. Now we have another instrument called escrow. Escrow sometimes is a negotiable instrument that is delivered conditionally for a specific purpose as a collateral security or for safe custody only and not for the purpose of transferring its ownership. In such cases, it is called an escrow. It may be noted that in such cases an instrument, there is no liability of the parties to pay the amount of the instrument unless the conditions agreed upon are satisfied. Moving further, let us now look at the concept of maturity of negotiable instrument. Maturity of an instrument means the date at which the payment falls due. This is under section 22. An instrument made to be payable on demand and at sight or presentment such as check becomes payable immediately on the date of its execution, and there is no need to work out its date of maturity. The need is to calculate the maturity date would arise only where there is an instrument which is expressed to be payable otherwise than demand. Therefore, the maturity date is the third day after the day on which it is expressed to be payable, and these 3 days are called days of grace. For example, if a bill of exchange is drawn on 20th March, it is expressed to be payable 2 months after the date, that is 20th of May. It would mature on 23rd of May. This way it has been presented for payment on the last day of grace. Detailed rules exist for calculating the date of maturity. There are various issues such as public holidays and so on involved. Now let us recapitulate what we have learned. A negotiable instrument is one which is a property, it's an asset which is acquired by anyone who takes it as bona fide for a value notwithstanding any defect of the title in the person for whom took it. A negotiable instrument has certain features. It is written, it is signed by the maker, it carries a fixed monetary value, and there is an unconditional promise, and it is freely transferable. The transferee has the right to recover the amount and acquire the title over the instrument. There are certain kinds of negotiable instruments: promissory notes, bills of exchange, checks, and other types of instruments like hundis, treasury bills, and share warrants. The government has a monopoly over the issue of currency, which by the way is also a negotiable instrument. The classification of instruments is done on certain basis, that is, negotiable instruments are classified as inland and foreign, bearer and order, demand and time, and finally escrow.